So, like to talk. Thank you for coming. This is a conversation kind of riffing off what David Gregory had said at the Unity conference, which I think you probably all saw the video. He was talking about the fact that he was involved. He was actually a victim of the temporary displaced by the Paradise, California fire, and and he was talking about how one of the ways that we in the California independence movement can get more attention is by organizing a relief organization. And I'm going to talk. And I actually I have to admit, no shade on David or anybody else, but I had been thinking about this for about a year at least. How this was one way. So I'm going to get a chance now to talk about some of the strategy ideas, and also talk about maybe nothing else, giving us some theoretical background for how to achieve our goals. So my proposal here is simply developing an organization to aid victims of disasters in Gran California, which is the 3 states of California. Because as you know, we have brush fires, we have floods, we have landslides, we have the regularly occurring in California, and they always all, and what's interesting to me is watch it, and you'll notice that the media is always the first or second institution that's on site whenever a disaster occurs, right? Because they know it's big stuff and they take a responsibility out of it. The other thing is they always praise the groups that are providing aid, whether they're churches or the Red Cross or whoever, the military. Boy, they're out there saying how wonderful they are, how great, how thankful they are, right? They sort of take it upon themselves to be that voice. Politicians and other celebrities try to use them. There's a person there. They want to show their presence there. So if you want to get the attention of the media, it seems to me the first place to do is, 1, be where the media is, and 2, be in a place, put yourself in a situation where you're going to get favorable coverage. So what's our goal? Our goal is to introduce the concept of Gran California to our nation and to the world, right? And the ultimate reunification of California. I will point out to you that one thing I'm talking about here is saying that ultimately our problem, our opponent, what we're trying to really do is we're trying to break down the barrier between the Californias, especially between Alta California and Baja California, right? And how do you do that except by acting as though there is no barrier? Someone puts a barrier across, you have to cross it. If they put up walls, you build ladders. And by that means, and if they build a higher wall, you build a higher ladder, because you show them you will not accept their limitations. Second is, we need to help Californians understand that there is a Baja California, there are people over there, and they're much like us. They face the same challenges, much the same challenges that we do. Then also, by crossing the border, we'll have good relations with government officials, with media leaders, with entertainers, because we're going to have a fundraising campaign, business leaders, and other celebrities all across California. Because boy, there's anything that anybody around here wants to have, they want their face on TV. Second, we can establish partnerships of greater community development. My idea is not just a relief organization, but a recovery organization. Just brief aside, I'm watching on Japanese television, national television, because it gets broadcast on cable here in NHK, yeah? And they're doing regular stuff from Tohoku, which is northern Japan, got hit by the tsunami 9 years ago. And what do they emphasize is how much there is still to be done to fix the place up. Because they recognize, once the initial disaster was responded to, there was then this long period of recovery, and that of course would get us involved in development ultimately. And then ultimately, the more we do, the more we're credible as an institution within Gran California. And I can't overemphasize that, because part of this scheme is to present people with the image of Gran California, the big map. That's the symbol. You ask what kind of symbol do we need? We need that symbol, because that's a symbol nobody sees. And they're going to see that, and they're going to say, oh crap, there is a Baja California. They're in another country, but they're Californians. And our ultimate goal is demonstrate that Californians can survive without the USA. How?
Yay.
The way to, it's a way to say it, right? The way, in other words, and I'm going to be saying this over and over again, this basic concept. You want to demonstrate, you want to argue something? Show it. Someone says it can't be done? Do it.
Right.
And don't wait for anyone's permission. Do it yourself. Take action. So let's reach into our history. I'm going to assume none of you really have much of an idea what went on in the 1960s in San Francisco. Maybe you do. But the Diggers were an organization that was probably the most organized in San Francisco. And I'm going to show you about 6 minutes. I took a 10-minute video, so it may seem long, but I cut it down to 6. And it's going to show you exactly what their mind was thinking when they were doing all this stuff. Because it was really misunderstood by the media at the time. That, by the way, is a picture of the Digger Free Store, which was one of the idea. Have you been to a thrift store where everything's secondhand and there's a price tag on it? This is a revolutionary concept. No prices. No cash. You want it? Take it. You don't want it? Leave it. But they had some, but see, that's a good example where a concept where the media misunderstood it. What was really going on. They thought it was this charity, but what these people were trying to do was achieve something political. As I said, they were providing free food and free lodging, free entertainment, like the Grateful Dead and Janis Joplin. They were doing concerts and stuff. And in San Fran, making San Fran the cultural center of the world. And people misunderstood it, thinking it was charity. They had something much more intense on their minds than charity. Because what they were saying was, you think it's impossible? People say it's impossible. Achieve it. That's simple as that. So here's the, and I came up with this equivalent. The most effective school is action. I'm an educator, right? I got my failed PhD and 2 years of 19 classes I taught. I can tell you, the most effective school is action. You don't have, because school is boring. But people, the most effective way to teach people is not let them know they're being taught anything. So here's the video. Check it out.
Culture is much more important than politics. Let's just start getting people living the way they want to live.
Free people, the San Francisco Diggers. Freedom has always been a stereotype and staple of American culture, but there is one social movement in American history that pushed ideologies and enactments of freedom more so than they had ever been pushed, and wouldn't you know it, it happened during the 60s. A rambunctious and visionary street performer group of anarchists who called themselves the Diggers essentially gave up personal property, creating a model for what a free society at large would look like. They openly rejected the current American way as oppressive and inadequate for human development, creating their own alternate route instead. They had a philosophy of freedom not only for goods and services, but also for the mind, body, and soul, shown in their practices of life acting and existence within a psychedelic community, the Haight-Ashbury neighborhood of San Francisco. Original San Francisco Digger members came from the San Francisco Mime Troupe, founded by R.G. Davis, who wanted to bridge the psychedelic community with the political New Left, whom were both thriving in the San Francisco Bay Area. The troupe performed in public parks for free, exploring intense themes that were overtly political and mainly aimed to confront hypocrisy in society, hopefully expanding the consciousness of the audience. Manifesting as the Diggers, they sought to fuse their art and reality as one, taking their acting outside of the traditional performance space and into the streets. By constantly acting and therefore living the vision of freeness, they demonstrated that it was possible. Like many others in the Haight-Ashbury, the Diggers shared the same general feeling that society was pretty lame, oppressive, inhibiting, and playing out in a generally meaningless cycle of archaic practices. Their visceral experience of live acting was attractive to many, simply because it proposed a liberated existence for oneself and a meaningful vision to pursue one's community. Becoming a life actor was a way for the diggers to cure themselves and their peers of the drags of American society. They enticed audiences to embrace the theatricality of life and exposed them to their anti-property ideas of freedom in the process. Everything is free was the later Diggers' version of the original Diggers' disregard for the construct of personal property and served as the inspiration for some of their early and most well-known feats, such as the daily free food giveaways, free crash pads, and the Free Store, which represented a mockery of capitalism and provided free resources for the Hashberry community. This free existence and philosophy empowered and enabled the Diggers to do virtually anything they saw fit for the purpose of revolution. To avoid the system, they would gather whatever the community had to offer for free, sometimes through mysterious means, sometimes through purchase, and distribute it to the public. Digger events encouraged crowd participation and discouraged mere spectation. They wanted you to be involved and cast away the precious understanding you had of society and decide to live outside of its rules and boundaries. All Digger-run events and even institutions were essentially just life-acting performances. To get to the free food distribution, for example, crowds usually had to walk through the free frame of reference, a giant yellow 13-foot-tall rectangle, which also was the name of the first free store, which represented the re-evaluation of one's perspective. Diggers were mostly successful in avoiding police and gaining public support from other young hippies with their intriguing and safeguarding sheath of anonymity, in addition to their radical example of non-exclusivity. The free systems of the Diggers were largely successful in providing for the hip community until the population explosion of miners and drifters who started flooding into the Haight during 1967. To respond to this, the Diggers tried to acquire lands in the surrounding countryside areas to help create safe havens for people to outsource to. The Digger activities became less and less frequent as more Diggers left, and the scene of the Haight grew more unstable. Eventually, the Diggers gave away their final possession, their name, as it was becoming loosely used and became instead the Free City Collective, an effort to start providing for the communes that had popped up all around the Bay Area on the model of a collective self-sufficient system where all goods and services were provided by participating parties. The San Francisco Diggers were not necessarily reaching out to the populations outside their immediate community unless it was for collaborations such as other radical or anarchist groups like the Black Panthers or the Hells Angels. But they effectively served their own hip community, while also creating a reality of literal and metaphorical freedom for themselves, completely casting away traditional ideas of capitalism and conservative, complacent American ways of the 1950s. In today's society, where everything can be bought and sold, and most oppressive institutions and norms revolve around and operate within the monetary system, the thought of a group of people finding ways to make everything free, including themselves, sometimes just as a testament to their own freedom, however outlandish it may have been, the Diggers showed an admirable desire to better society while allowing themselves to be creative during the process. They went where no one has gone before in contemporary American culture, casting away their socioeconomic privileges and creating their own institutions and practices purely with all the resources that already existed in the world around them. Trickle-down examples of accepted freedoms can be found all across contemporary American society. Additionally, American youth of today revel in the multitude of personal freedoms that mainstream culture has come to accept. Tattoos, music tastes, different fashion styles, even the atmosphere of the music festival culture is widely accepted. The San Francisco Diggers were indeed a short movement, only being active from roughly 1967 to 1968. But they also had a huge realm of influence for their size and status. Not only successful in terms of achieving goals that shifted within the community, the Diggers were the living example of the one thing that drove them the most: freedom.
So thanks, Callie Erickson, wherever you are. Yeah, thanks. I see a lot of smiles out there.
That's cool.
Yeah.
A lot of memories.
Well, yeah, but also, I was telling Marcus the fact that, I mean, I got active, like in the 80s, early 80s. And so that means a lot of those guys, they were like our elders. They're like elders, like they were under 50 back then,
Yeah. Very reminiscent of Woodstock. I mean,
Well, Woodstock came out of this.
Yeah. Yes.
That's the point, right? I think, but also important is that you can see how the problem is because of Woodstock. Woodstock was supposed to make a profit, and then it
Was supposed
blew
to
up.
give it for free because they couldn't even control it.
They couldn't control it because they got something that was too big they couldn't
So they
control.
said, "Fuck it, come in free."
Yeah, but I mean, then we had Altamont. So you also see that you can that's the trouble though that I think the key here was I want to emphasize right was that the Diggers were a political organization with political goals. They didn't just want to do art, and they certainly just wanted to do charity. They wanted to make a change in society and make it better.
An interesting note is how did they fund themselves to get free stuff?
But that's actually in the video. One was frankly was frankly drug dealers,
Ah,
but and also entertainers. So like the Grateful Dead would get a big check, and then they give part of that to the Digger movement.
ah.
Okay, but I also think probably a lot of it was probably through donations because remember they talk about this. My research I found there are a lot of, shall we call them, weekend hippies out in those days. They'd have a job working in a stock brokerage or something down on Fremont Street, right downtown, and then they'd take off their tie and go hang out in the hate. And the thing was, it wasn't just these were people who actually were already challenging their values, but they were still keeping their day job, right? So I think that's probably where a lot of it also came from. I mean, the Haight-Ashbury was its own little micro economy, and in its heyday. So also when I said drug dealers, I mean you had a whole different approach to drugs than we have today, right? I mean, you had Owsley making the world's greatest LSD
We
25.
have to bring back LSD. We have to bring it back. Oh my God.
So I'm gonna got one more slide here, so bear with, but there, folks, that's your image. No one's seen it before. Hardly anyone knows about it. Most people wouldn't hardly recognize it, but they'll recognize it immediately as they say, "Yeah, there's a Baja California."
Yeah.
I live up here, but there's 3 million people down there, and we were all one country once. And the only reason we're not is because of an outside power that's put a great big steel wall in the way. And they can show, so this is what I'm going to ask you. This is my ask, right? I'm saying we can do this. We can start small, right? I mean, you can just raising the money enough, and then you can give it to another organization that can spend it, but you take credit for that gift. It's a little bit like political action committees, isn't it? It's bundling the cash and then making an impact by saying we just gave a bunch of cash.
Yeah, because the cash can't flow into the PAC from the charity, but it can.
No, I don't mean it that way. I mean I'm using charity as a PAC.
It can flow from the PAC to the charity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I'm saying we can give the money to the Red Cross, we can give it to development organizations, we can give it to whoever's whoever's serving a need at the time, right? But it obviously can expand. I mean, the image I want to remind you is a bottle of water. Where's my visual aid? Think about this. A bottle of water weighs about as much as a hand grenade. But I will argue to you that we can make more of an impact, certainly a more positive impact, with a bottle of water that says Gran California, right? Del Gente de Gran California. Which, if you didn't know your Spanish, is from the people of Gran California, with a picture of Gran California on it, then we can ever achieve any other way.
That's good. That's.
They're going to hold that bottle and they're going to say, Gran California. And words are going to come out of their mouths.
And this wasn't stolen from Strawberry Creek, folks.
Yeah.
Well, the root of the problem is still always the same thing: funding. I mean,
But that's-
if we don't get funding, all this is just like, yeah, it's a nice concept.
But I will point out to you that there are 9 million people who support California at least, right? Independence. You need to reach out to those people and just make the smallest act. Give us your credit card number and an authorization for, say, $10 a month, $5 a month, right? Small monthly contributions will make an enormous amount of money. And also, I can tell you in the biz, if you make a $10,000 contribution to the Red Cross and then you'll get a press release and it'll be in the news. Especially because everyone will be focusing on the disaster of that moment, right? Whether it's a brush fire or a flood or a landslide, people will be like studying it right away, and everyone's attention's on it, and then we step in there with our name, and that's all it's about. And then we just have to remind people, because like the digger said, you oppose capitalism, you oppose the exploitation of workers. You want, the simplest answer is show people they can live without those things, right? You don't talk about it. You don't make theories about it. You don't write endless papers about how rotten capitalism is or what it does to human beings. You do it. So, like I say, without violence or we don't have a protest. We don't do protests. We don't have to, and I guarantee you, anything we do will give us broad public approval, because everyone's going to say, wow, I love it what you're doing for those people there, whoever's needing the needing, right? Nobody will say, I'm glad what you're doing, but it's wrong. I don't think we should have an independent California, whatever. They're going to keep their mouth shut. And also I love it because it does potentially get us into direct conflicts with the federal government, which we can exploit because now we've got the high ground. When you have the moral high ground, you can just say, why you get in our way, man? We're trying to help people. And then they look like the bad guys, which is not stupid. But I do think that if there's anything we should learn from the 60s, right, it's that, I'm going to use the phrase pig, right? The pigs are extraordinarily predictable, right? I mean that loosely, in terms of that right? What we're trying to pose. They are extraordinarily predictable. They believe in force. They believe in authority. They really don't like it being challenged, which makes it anybody who's predictable is really easy to defeat. Because you know what they're going to do, and you just have to plan for that. So personally, and I'm not going to say I can prepare the papers, being legal papers, whatever need to be done. I can maintain the accounting. I can create the graphics to make this happen. I can do the websites. I can do a lot of stuff. But I really would like to have help to do all the other stuff. The contacting, answering the emails, whatever. Just you sharing your stuff on video, just trying to reach out to people who are less committed and get them involved. Telling them, look, the way we create Gran California is get everyone talking about Gran California. Because it's the alternative.
That's right.
And let's have fun. And let's give ourselves power. Thank you. So, some discussion. Anything? We got some minutes for any questions? You asked some already, really good ones. Yeah, we don't have any money, but I just said, we've got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And you have a major impact because you don't need $1,000 or $10,000 will be like, thank you very much. We're so glad you did this.
We've talked about this before in movement like helping out the homeless, cleaning up a beach, things like that, like community activities, just to be noticed that we're always there when there's a need for something,
But the thing is that the reason why I focus on disasters is because those are the times when the media is paying most attention.
Yeah. Well, not to hope for disasters.
But they're inevitable, and they're going to come more frequently. And then, of course, I don't tell you about climate change and sea level rise and things like that are going to occur. But the idea being that we got money stashed, we got positions. Eventually, we'll have supplies positioned, even equipment positioned, ready to move. Because this is something that just grows and bigger and bigger. And of course, if we get strong enough to handle all of California's issues, then we've got the Mexican states, right? Remind people that Jalisco, Sinaloa, and Sonora are all directly connected to Baja California. So, and they've got problems too. Yeah. Same issues. So, but it's all about using our strength. And I think that we get those 9 million or 12 million or 15 million people to make that minimal involvement, that minimal contribution, which they don't have to feel guilty about, they don't have to justify, right? And we'll get them. Like I said, we'll talking about it because they'll be saying, "I'm donating to GCC." I'll end by this. I'm saying that do you remember? Did anyone here raise your hand if you ever collected pennies for UNICEF? Nobody did.
No.
Hal?
What?
Did you ever collect for UNICEF?
Actually, it was a different charity. Yes.
You remember? We were little kids, and they give us they get little orange cardboard boxes, and they were like just for big enough for a little slot to get just a spare change. And that's what we did on Halloween, was to raise money for starving children, in around the world. And that's one thing. We can literally get everybody involved, literally down to the littlest child, saying, I'm going to help out, Gran California's organization. Gran California Cares.
Well, yeah. Well, to finish, since we were talking about Dave Gregory, he made a great point and kind of shamed us all, and said, this was a missed opportunity. Those folks could have used all of us there, and it was a missed opportunity. Let's not miss opportunities again. And that was really strong. He shamed us all because, yeah, we should have been up there. Actually, we should have. And the next one, we shouldn't be shamed into it. We should be there.
We should be ready for it.
Yeah, ready for it. Yeah.
Well, opportunities. Well, one I think is passed because there's still a bunch of Central American refugees stuck in Baja, but the Mexican government, I don't know. They ship them out to someplace. I don't know where they're at. We can't stop us in Baja. It was kind of a scary thing, And that's what they want to do to homeless people here, by the way, ship them out to South America. But Puerto Rico is still hurting badly. They hear from us. We raise money for them. Where Tio Sam is, like this in contempt.
More than likely,
Puerto Rico is like.
we'll have opportunities closer to home.
Yes.
The weather is warming.
That's right.
As the weather warms and as it dries, as we reach into the midsummer, there is almost a guarantee that we're going to see another fire season.
Another fire season, maybe eventually a hurricane.
You're saying plan for another fire season, plan for another towns to be burned down.
Yeah.
I am always going to say plan for.
Yeah, we're not going to cause it.
Plan for.
Of course. We
Yeah.
need to plan. We need to.
Yeah.
We need to get some. We need to grow some legs.
Yeah.
For fire season.
So that we can run up at these things instead of.
Yeah, but
flail.
it's our fault because we don't rake our forests.
Yeah.
That's a lot. Because we don't rake them.
More serious questions for Hannah. More serious questions for
Instead
Hannah.
we get windmill cancer.
So anyways, maybe the question asks is,
I just wanted to make one last statement. We have a crisis right now that we've had for a long time. We have kids in cages at our border.
that's right.
Why aren't we down there? Why aren't we down there for that already?
Well,
Well,
I guess I would say that,
but we're within walking distance of the nearest homeless man.
right?
Yes.
We have kids in cages. We have kids in cages.
I think kids in cages are
I'm
worse
gonna
than
stop.
homeless.
I'm gonna stop.